All right, welcome. We are back for another week of Tai Chi. Great to see everyone virtually. Probably not anybody new that's never been here before, but if you've straggled in here off the internet, welcome. You might want to look at a couple of videos before this one, perhaps, under the heading of Lunar Tai Chi, if I titled it that way. Point is we're going to do some movements that we started doing in previous videos. But don't worry, if you're here, stay here. Okay, good. And we're just loosening up. It's called wrapping the pole, for lack of a better name. I don't know what it is in Chinese. And just loosening up. If you have a hard time letting your arms swing freely, turn your waist more, loosen the shoulders. We're loosening the shoulders now. Some nice shoulder rolls. And put on our gloves. So it's hard to follow these videos sometimes, so I wear gloves. My right hand is always orange, left hand is always lemon yellow. Let's go around the other way with our shoulders, and then we'll get into some Qigong. So as I mentioned, as I was trying to mention, what I meant to say is the moon is full as of today, and so we'll do some Lunar Qigong, and the selection I have today is interesting. I haven't done them in the past. They're sort of at the bottom of my bag of tricks because they are often confused with other... Baby, what are you doing? My cat is messing with the camera and possibly the microphone. Anyway, what was I saying? These are some movements that are often confused with other movements or interpreted very differently by different traditions and different schools and different teachers, so much so that I almost don't want to confuse anybody, but they're worth looking at. And I think that let's work on our neck, loosen up the neck, up and down, please. They're worth looking at because the differences are actually fascinating. And some of these different interpretations, if you think about it, may have occurred over centuries. So if you're interested in history, I don't have a lot of knowledge of history, Chinese history or martial arts history, but if you are interested in just the passage of time and how ideas diverge, it's kind of interesting. Let's look side to side, and I'll explain more what I'm talking about when we do the movement. Let's look straight ahead, tip the head from side to side. So in a perfect world, you would, or I should say we would, do these little warm-ups, our favorite warm-ups, along with maybe 5 to 10 minutes of meditation before we even pressed play, and then we could just get right into it. But a lot of people don't do that. And so let's just massage the neck and shoulders, because those movements can't always work that well. So we'll warm up slowly, and I'll tell you about, again, a very simple movement. So it's called carrying the moon. And if we were to just start here with our feet parallel, this is a nice simple movement. What I mean by simple is we're only going to move the spine in one axis, in the sagittal plane. So we come forward. Remember, the first time you do anything, so the Qigong we do multiple times. The first time you do anything, don't do hardly anything at all. I'm bending my knees a little bit. I come up. Okay. I'm not carrying the moon yet because my hands are not carrying the moon. As I come up, now I make this sort of moon embracing palm. I come up to vertical. I go past vertical. So it's a back bend now. But the first time, don't do that much. Come back to vertical, and you can just float the arms down. So generally speaking, you remember, we inhale up, exhale down, and also, or exhale, close, inhale, open. So we'll do it again. And this time, maybe you go down a tiny bit more. So I was going to explain some of the evolution of these movements. So this is called carrying the moon. This is, I believe, from the, this version is from the Qigong, the 18, and then some people actually add, they call this lift the sky and carry the moon. So in other words, that would mean that they place more significance on this upward movement, right? Rather than just being a way to get your hands up, they put more emphasis in it, right? So that's good. It's all about intention. It's about what are we looking at? What is the whole movement important or just a certain part of it, right? So normally this type of movement, like we have a Qigong that involves, like a wild goose flapping its wings, but in this case we don't seem to really care too much about this part of the movement, right? And we didn't care about this part of the movement until I told you that it's referred to as lifting the sky. And at first all we cared about was carrying the moon. So we just add layers of significance to these movements, which is fine by me. The more significance that we can pack into a single movement, the better. So we don't hold the moon until we get up to where the moon is. And as I've mentioned before, a radical backbend like that, you'd never see that in your Tai Chi form. This is why we have to do some Qigong at all. It's the only reason why we do it. That's enough. So let's, as I was mentioning, why don't we just stand and meditate, because maybe you aren't liable to do it on your own. I'm going to allow you the opportunity to pause the video and continue to meditate. But I'm going to continue. So, there's another, let's see. There's another tradition that actually calls that movement that we just did, finding moon at sea bottom. And what happens then is you get into this different interpretation, the sea. That is an interpretation of a completely different tradition, so another tradition over, which refers to this movement. It's different, but it refers to it as old man searching for the reflection of the moon in a tidal pool. And that is not, so let's keep doing it then. Let's keep doing it. So even that interpretation is is not exactly right, because the old man, according to parable, is not searching for the moon in the tidal pool. According to the parable, he thinks he's walking down a path and he thinks he sees a pearl in a tidal pool. So he bends over to look for it, and he's very disappointed to find out it's not a pearl, and in fact it's the reflection of the moon. So in another tradition, I believe it's the 5 elements Qigong, there's a whole different interpretation, right? So they separate out not just the movements, the up, down, side. They separate out the qualities of the movements. They shake the arms. They experience the excitement of noticing the pearl, the disappointment of realizing it's not a pearl, maybe some anger in there. And each of these emotions corresponds to different organs and meridians, and so you can get so deep into this stuff. And I promise you, next time we do this particular set, we'll delve deeper into that. But I just wanted you to know how deep you can actually go. It's so fascinating. So that otherwise was also known as old man searching in the tidal pool for a reflection of the moon. So let's see, why don't we then we'll do another one. It's called Open Window to Look at the moon, or Open Window and Look at the Moon. And in like Shaolin Qigong, it's basically just a double push, right? But then where is the opening of the window? I don't really see that. But we can start out with that, right? Okay, and we actually talked about our double push. You can get a little circular movement in here. It can never hurt to add some circular movement. If you're not sure how to go from side to side, right, is just okay. So they're focusing just on the push, and the moon part comes in because they're not holding their hands straight up and down. They're holding their hands like this. This is a much more effective push with the elbows sunk, a little bit of curvature here. So that's where the moon comes from, looking at the moon. I don't really know where they say opening the window comes from, but then you can go in the Yang style. There's that movement has, this is really great. That same movement is not about the push. It's about coming back down. So it's more about rollback. And then the opening of the window is sort of like our pum. So this would be the opening of the window, and then you just touch, not push, and then more like rollback. So we've studied this before as an exercise. We do Pung, Lu, Ji, and An, which is ward off, roll back, press, and push. But we won't get into that now. But as long as we did it on one side, we have to do it on the other side. So that was ward off, roll back, press, and then push. So open window, look at the moon sort of has this sort of here to here and then down to here, right? So it's another interpretation, but the interpretation that I like best has more of a Fair Lady or Jade Girl movement. And I hope you guys are pivoting your feet as we're going from side to side. And what it would be is more like, so you just come with your sort of ward off, and then there is a version of Fair Lady where you sort of roll the palms outward, and now this is holding the moon, right? Or looking at the moon. But I like this version because you're on a diagonal, so it's not just the regular push that we do. It's coming up into a diagonal, right? And then pretty much however you want to come down. So let's try that a couple times. So you would sort of use your ward off to come up, and then roll the hands out. I really like this version the best. And then, so we opened the window, and now we're looking at the moon. So let's come and do it on the other side. So you can do a little circle here just to get started. And then, so we're going to open the window, and then look at the moon. I like that one best. So again, just a little circle. It doesn't really matter here. So then we're gonna come to here, open our window, and then look at the moon. Okay, I can't remember which side we started on. Let's just do it one more time. And if you want, you can practice the version of rollback that we like, just to get us back to where we were, and then ward off. This is opening our window. This is looking at the moon. Let's do one more. Okay, so a little bit of roll back here, and then a little bit of a reset, and then your ward off, open that window, look at the moon. Okay, great. And this is we're not up here, right? We've done this before, right? In other movements, so we're just right about there. Good job. So I think that's really fascinating, all those different interpretations. How about, let's see. Let's review one that we did in our last set called Shoot the Moon. Because I think I showed you a very easy version of it, and I can add some complexity or difficulty to that for you. So I believe what we're doing, and this has this sort of idea of these, holding these teacups, even though it's not a teacup exercise. But if you remember, it looks something like this. And it has a little bit of the essence of bend bow, shoot tiger, but it's up higher. So it's up higher. So I think the way we did it last time, not last week, but last time the moon was full, was same hand, same foot forward, and then we switch. So see, I kept my palms up relatively upward. I could exaggerate that if I wanted to. So what we can do now is we can bring this palm higher and also do opposite hand, opposite foot. This is going to increase the difficulty considerably in terms of twisting, internal twisting. So it would be, so if I was there, it would be opposite hand, opposite foot. And then I'm gonna twist and stretch. Okay, a lot of internal twisting, and then step. Oh, that's much nicer. I really like this version better. Okay, and then so we didn't do this first because we needed to warm up our spine first before we could tackle something like this. And I have one more Lunar Qigong that is even more of a twist. So we need to warm up our spine fully before we, oops, I did my hands wrong on that one. Close enough. All right, great. Oh, that's a really good one. So I'm also going to give you the opportunity to go back and forth across your living room doing 10 or 20 of those. Don't ever say that I don't give you enough workout. I'm giving you an overview. You can always pause your video and turn this into a drill and just do 20 more. In fact, why don't we, as a matter of fact, let's take a little tiny break and then we will do the form. So we'll take a tiny break and then come back and do our form. Okay, we're back. Let's loosen up again. You can never do too many of these. Same thing with shoulder rolls. So you can try, we're doing this shoulder rolls in this axis, but there's an idea that you can actually rotate your shoulders outward and inward too. And you should always do your Tai Chi with your shoulders separated from the body, right? So like there's a little puff of air in your shoulders because we hold so much tension in there. Okay, great. So we try to do everything a little different when the moon's full, just to be contrary or more yin than we are yang. So instead of me coming straight at you to do our form, I figure I'll start right here, and I'm going to head east. Doesn't matter what direction it is. And you'll see a slightly different angle, okay? So, and again, if you're brand new, I'm making a huge assumption that you've done this before, but you can still follow along. You can still follow. We'll just do 8 movements, don't worry. And this is the Yang 88 Sensao form. Okay, so we come into our resting posture. Remember, by now, even just saying the words resting posture should place you in a light meditative state. I hope. Okay. Pause the video if you need to. If you don't feel it, pause it and stand in your resting posture. Okay. Okay, good. All right, off we go. Sink into your right foot. Take your time here. And then bring the left foot up. And remember, we're sliding the left foot. For the first 2 steps, we're sliding as an audio cue for our partner who might be blindfolded. Yeah, that's right. We used to do that. Remember in the days before COVID when we could have contact? Okay, 7 stars, a half step up, hand drops back to the waist, carry hammer. Okay, sink back into your left foot. This is an implied single white crane, excuse me. I switch my arms, I step on the poor cat, and I do white ape swings through branches. Okay, I'm going to shift back to the other leg and pivot the empty foot, step up and over, I'm shifting right, and then shifting left, elbow strikes the heart. So you can't see me that well, but you've seen it before. Ring the gong, and strike a tiger, strum the lute. It's just a different perspective. And then big pivot, step in and back, inspect horse's mouth. And then the final move that we'll do is a half a step back, and come another half step back and come into dragon pose. And your weight should be back, so technically you could do an implied kick. All right, good. So we'll do the B side, and I will still face east, and I think we can transition back to the A, and that way you'll see it from a different perspective. I'm gonna take a little sip of water. Okay, here we go. I'm trying not to step on this Poor sweet cat. Relax completely. Sink into your left leg this time. Slide the right foot back on your toes. As you shift back, you drop the foot, you turn to the right, turning the waist to the left, steps the left foot in. Oh, I'm kind of awkward there because my hip hurts like crazy. I don't know what I did to it. So I look kind of stiff there. Single whip. Okay, step around and strike a tiger right. Keep twisting left, step in and back. This is pull and push is just the name of this movement. And then step up. And then this is a shoulder strike. Shift your weight left. Hold this sort of hoop here with the left hand on top, pivoting around. Step the left foot in and back. Draw the bucket from the well. Shift back. Left palm up, right palm down, pivot right. Step in and back. Downward push. So this is downward push, and then white snake darts out its tongue, and we'll switch back over to the A side. So white snake darts out its tongue. Implied 7 stars. Carry hammer. Implied white crane. White ape swings through branches. Shift right, pivot the left foot, step up and over, shift right, shift left, elbow strikes the heart, shift back right, ring the gong, shift left, strike a tiger. I took the little extra step there as if stepping around my partner. Strum the lute, shift back, and inspect horse's mouth, and then come back into dragon pose. So that's another way of looking at it. And remember, here's our little implied kick. If you can still see me, I may be out of the frame. Great. All right, good. So that was our form for this week. We're not going to explore any of the single moves this week because we're busy doing these lunar things. And next week, we'll go back to exploring one of the movements of the form. And again, if you have a request, if you don't understand, draw the bucket from the well, or you don't understand, strum the lute in terms of why we're doing it the way we do it, for instance, or the basics you should be able to rough out. Is my weight forward? Is my weight back? Is this my right hand? Yes, if it's orange. Is this my left hand? Which foot is which? But the subtleties, I'd be glad to show that to you if you ask me. Otherwise, I have to assume everybody's kind of up to speed. So let's do... Oh, I was going to show you something. So for those of you who are not studying your form, you should still... I'm not comfortable with you just doing Qigong because I need for you to move around more. I mean, movement is... That's what we're here for, right? And here's something you can do. We don't do this in Tai Chi, but I know a lot of you are doing some form of weight training, right? And something you can do, which nobody ever does, is combine one of your stepping exercises with your weight training. So without going all over how we're doing our stepping, just the conventional chicken step or cat step, depending on who describes it, is just this one where we step in and this is sort of a moment of decision, and then we choose to step out, and then we step out and we choose to transfer our weight, we choose to step up, we choose to step out, and this is just, it happens to kind of tend to be sort of zigzaggy, and this is not, remember how you walk down the street. This is how you step if you're trying to be stable, if you're trying to be careful, if you're in a low light situation, if you're trying to sneak up on someone, you could set your feet down really quietly. I just set the ball of my foot down to be super careful, but generally we're speaking, what we're doing is stepping the heel down and then rolling into the rest of the foot. So this is stepping, not walking. And this is real balance, right? I hate to say it, but in yoga, this is not real balance. You're never doing this in the normal day. But in stepping, you're doing this all the time. And downstairs, upstairs, remembering that every step is a choice, right? And that you have to be careful before you have to know, before you transfer your weight or proceed forward, you have to know that you're not in danger. So we do stepping a lot of the time. The only time we do walking is when we're really cruising, right? So getting back to your weight training, if you're going to sit there with your hand weights and do stuff like this, you may as well move too. It adds to your movement and it adds to your weight training too. So you take, we're not going to do a bunch of these, I promise. We're not going to do a bunch of these. Get a plastic water bottle, and that way if you drop it on your foot, it's not going to hurt anything, right? But so if I was just going to do some curls, it'd be something like that, right? But if I add my stepping to it, then it's a whole new thing. And do I prefer to lift on the opposite foot, or do I prefer to lift on the same side foot, right? There's no rule, because in real life there's no rule, right? This is the same thing that you see in our push hands. There's better or worse ways of doing things, but you've got to be prepared for anything that comes along, because your partner's not going to wait for you to get set up, right? In fact, that's your partner's whole purpose, is to not let you get set up and not let you get the proper foot forward. So say, for instance, in our form, that's just an example. So play around with that. If you're not doing your form, I prefer you do your form, but if you're not doing your form, you should be doing some stepping every day. And so in our form, yes, there is a left foot forward, right foot forward, but if you get switched, you should still be able to execute your move, right? So for instance, boy, this is weird. Well, some of these you can't. I don't think you can do ward off with the opposite. It just feels so weird. No, you can't do that. But there's a lot of movements. So push you could do with either foot forward. It's the same thing. So if it says in your form that your left foot is forward, if you get switched up, it should not matter. And then if you need to switch your feet for the following move, you just do a little shuffle, or like a bird hop, I don't know what sparrow hop or something like this. And so you should be not doing your form so much by rote that if you get your feet mixed up, you're completely flustered. You should be able to, you should start to go by feel, what feels right for the move, and then you should be able to switch it up if you get into trouble, right? So I wanted to say one more Lunar Qigong for you till we go. And we won't do our usual closing Qigong because I thought we'd end with this one. And this one requires you to be the most warmed up. So we were doing one of our teacup exercises. Don't do this, just watch. Or do it if you want. This big double one, and I said that I thought this was reminiscent of the phases of the moon, right? And then I remembered, all right, if you did it now, you're going to have to go the other way because we have to go both ways. So then I remember one of the 18, I think it's I can't remember if it's Shaolin Qigong or, I can't remember now, but it's called the rotating of the big turning of the cosmos. And this is the only Qigong I've ever seen where the hands are joined together and the fingers are actually interlaced. but not in a death grip. And this is not a martial movement. This is not a double punch. This is Qigong. Do not pivot your feet. The reason we keep our feet parallel is to increase the twisting, right? And we're actually going to step out. So you could step out into your horse riding stance, extra wide horse riding stance, sit down, and then this is big turning of the cosmos. And do it small first, because you get a lot of twisting and turning and stretching I don't think you're doing this every day, right? So in one direction, and then the other. It looks like my arms are tense, but I promise you they're not. Or I'll try to make them even more relaxed. But this type of pose reminds you of things that you do when you're very tense, like, chopping wood or something. You shouldn't even really be tense when you're chopping wood. If you want to let the axe do the work, you should be very relaxed. But if you can imagine, even if you're not into astronomy or astrology, you can just imagine all the stars just moving across the heavens over the course of the evening. And we know the stars have the lunar aspect to them. So this is fairly dynamic. I feel it in my back, in the rib cage. So that's why I saved it till last, till we're really warmed up. So, you know what? We could do our other closing Qigong also. There's no law against it. All right, so again, if you want to do 10 more of those, hit pause. And then I'll assume that 5 minutes has passed, you hit pause again, and we will do the Qigong that we normally use to close with. And the reason we close with the same one is so that you can use this movement to judge how your body feels, depending on what we did differently in this set. So you might feel calmer, you might feel more energized, you might feel a little exhausted, or very serene. Last week, I believe since it's so hot, we were learning how to do our movements effortlessly, and that gives you that nice sort of floaty feeling. It's a very happy feeling too. You can't have that. I don't think that floating feeling can coexist with bad thoughts or anger. I'll turn a little bit sideways just so you can see what's going on. And as I've mentioned before, since we've been talking about holding the moon, you may, when your hands come up to here and the elbows drop, at this point you can kind of hold a large moon shape, just enough to get pulling and stretching in your arms, just to keep your arms very alive. So at this point, you would hold an imaginary moon. It's just a variation. I think also last week we were saying, just because it looks like we're double weighted, it doesn't mean that there's not things happening inside of us, or little twistings and turnings. You saw it there. You saw it there. All right, I'm just going to do one more of these and I'll turn you loose for the week. Hope you enjoyed our practice. And again, when your arms drop for the final time and you end up back in our resting posture, stand and meditate here for 5 minutes if you want. Go ahead and press pause. And then you come back to your computer, you press pause, unpause, or play. And we're back. And you guys stay meditating, and I'll go find us a quote. I think it's one that I really like. Oh yeah, that's right. I love this one. Okay, you guys, this is great. This is Confucius, circa about 500 BC, but it makes total sense for modern times. Confucius said, "The superior man understands what is right. The inferior man understands what will sell." And thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you next week. And little update, we may be back at the dojo. I would give it, I'd like to say, let's call it a couple of weeks, but that's close, that's close. All right, thanks you guys. Thank you very much.